Hello and welcome to today's webinar, How to Increase Your ROI with Information Management System Modernization. I'm Teresa Resick, the Director of Online Events at AIIM, and AIIM is your host and producer of today's webinar. And with me today are Martin Christian of Understand Group and Dave Jones of Nexio. Nexio is the underwriter of today's webinar, and we thank them for their support. And thank you for taking the time to join us today. And as we get started, just want to offer a few pointers for viewing today's webinar. By joining live, you can customize your own viewing experience, so feel free to open, close, or resize the different windows. Across the bottom of your screen is a list of all of the widgets that we have available for you. Group Chat is one of those available to you, and just open that by clicking on the icon, and that's along the bottom. But with Group Chat, you will be able to text chat with each other, but also with a few of us here at AIIM. Do ask questions of the speakers throughout our time today using the Q&A feature, and we will hold them until the end where we should have about 5 or 10 minutes to answer them. And you can also use this feature to ask for technical assistance. You may download a PDF of the presentation at any time. Just look to the resources list. There's also a few other documents and links in there to help you learn more about today's topic. So just click in there at any time, and that resource will open in a new browser tab, and you can save and read it after the webinar. And at the end of this webinar, a brief survey will open in your browser, and it's also in the widgets below the slide area. And I would greatly appreciate it if you take a few moments to offer your feedback. And this webinar is being recorded, and it will be posted to AIIM.org's Resources Webinars page in just a few days. I'd like to introduce the speakers that we have with us today. And Martin Christian is the founder and managing partner at Understand Group. And Martin has spent the last 25 years as a thought leader and visionary in marketing and product portfolio strategy for leading global software and solution companies. He is a veteran of the digital content and business process management markets, and he's also the former chair of AIIM's board of directors. And Dave Jones is the vice president of product marketing at Nexio, and Dave is a skilled evangelist and communicator who thrives on taking complex subject matters and delivering them to audiences of all levels via a variety of innovative, diverse, and ultimately personalized channels. So with this esteemed panel that we have with us today, I'm going to turn things over to Martin Christian to begin with our talk. So Martin, go ahead and take it from here.
Thank you very much, Teresa, and good afternoon and good morning to all of you here on the webinar. It's my pleasure today to be able to take us here just on a little bit of a journey through digital transformation and look at some of the opportunities related to that space and the challenges that we will all face here as we try and take advantage of some of these amazing new technologies that are coming to market. And also look at the business and technology solutions that maybe we can leverage here to take advantage of those technologies for our business. So I think probably something that everybody knows, but it's good to reflect on, is that this digital transformation opportunity is one of the realities of our time. It's on the front of many newspapers, at the headlines of many newscasts, and it is a reality driven by technology and maybe a little bit of fear of avoiding obsolescence here. It's all about automating manual tasks. It's about front and back office automation of white collar roles, and apps, chatbots, bots, and other technologies that act in a robotic fashion allow us all to be more productive in our day-to-day work and move humans into higher value roles. As AIIM says, this is a digital transformation journey, and from their research, 81% of organizations feel that digital transformation is important or very important. No surprise there, obviously. This is some more AIIM research here, and what it shows, rather than the detail of every single part of the pie here, is that this is a very sort of fragmented environment in which buyers and customers and clients are at different levels of knowledge with respect to digital transformation. So some people really understand and are well educated, and others haven't even started that journey in that education yet. To me, education is key. When you look at a chart like this, it shows you that people are at different phases, and there's a real need to invest in education in our companies to understand what digital transformation means and how we can take advantage of it. Just as we sort of came to terms with the challenges and opportunities of cloud and software as a service and mobile apps, which seems, now to be drifting away into the past, we are now confronted with a host of new opportunities and new technologies. It's really considered de facto, I think, that our new digital transformation solutions and business applications are going to be built in the cloud with subscription-type licensing models and consumption models, and with mobile interfaces and mobile access for all those applications. So that is sort of a de facto situation that has happened over the last few years, and now we're into a position where we need to understand better the challenges and opportunities of engaging our customers better, being compliant around, obviously, new introductions such as GDPR, and also taking advantage of new technologies like robotic process automation, which we'll talk about a little bit here in a second. But this is a journey, and you can't really sort of deny the history here. So many of you on this webinar would have been involved with AIIM and with information management, content management for many, many years. And I'm not going to go through the detail of this AIIM slide here, but it really shows us that we have a heritage that we have to be aware of and knowledgeable of as we move to this new world of digital transformation and these systems of understanding, as AIIM calls them. And there's some highlights there. You can see my highlights there in red, in terms of content no longer being a standalone entity, but being really another data type that will be consumed in the digital transformation world, that customer experience applications and solutions are critical opportunities here to look at, and that there will be many, many flavors of solutions, and all of this done in the context of real-time analytics and information sharing experiences. Everything that came before has value, but really we're trying to look forward and take advantage of new opportunities. We'll talk about this as we go through here. So there's an opportunity here to reinvent your business, an opportunity to move it to the next level, to make it more productive, to make it more profitable. Within that, the business benefits really are, I think, quite obvious in terms of productivity and profitability. But there's also something else happening sort of outside of the organization in the consumer space for many of us, which is that the people who consume our goods and services, whether we're banks or government agencies or utilities, wherever we may be in from a vertical standpoint, their buyer behavior has changed, and they are almost self-segmenting themselves into how they want to consume the information that we want to push to them, that we need to push to them. And because of that, we need to think hard about our value propositions in context of this digital transformation opportunity. So this more granular segmentation of the consumer and buyer market that many of us address really puts some pressure onto our existing information management systems, onto our business processes, and how we deliver information to our ultimate clients in the market space. Really, it's all about being competitive. So, digital transformation here is about being competitive. A lot of it is about focusing on those end user customers and giving them what they want in the way they want it, and doing it in the most cost-effective and efficient way as possible. There will be other reasons why we consume digital transformation types of applications and solutions and technologies, but really I think it's all about being more competitive and offering a better service in the market space. Gartner have done some research here recently, published new Magic Quadrants and new research around content services. David will take you through Nuxio's view on that. But I just wanted to sort of highlight that because I think that is a pretty significant change in how the technology space is being represented and how the technology space is trying to address these new markets. So it's really, without going into the detail of their research, it's really all about a blending of content services as platforms from which you can build applications, a set of tools, and then the applications themselves. So it's sort of a blending at those three levels of platform and infrastructure, tools and capabilities, functionality, and then building that out into apps, all in the context of a services framework. So Gartner have put a lot of work into that, obviously well respected in the market, and it's worth sort of just touching on. And you can see here, this is their latest Magic Quadrant, if you haven't already seen it. And on the left-hand side here, some notion of the functionality that they're really focused on in context of this new content services space as they have defined it. So that's sort of one view. At Understand Group, we work with a lot of clients in the technology space and consumers of these technologies and platforms and applications. We have a slightly different view. We think of it more in terms of what I call products and markets combined. So I'm just going to share with you here sort of a bit of a market map that will sort of help you navigate your way through the technologies and the vendors that are out there. So on the right-hand side here, you see the traditional enterprise content management vendors and the types of functionality and capability that you would expect to have from them. Many of you will already have that in place. On the left-hand side, what I like to call file, sync and share, or maybe some new age content services vendors and the types of more collaborative, more analytic, more search-based functionality that they bring around this notion of content and information management. So both of these things exist in pretty much everybody's company, I think. Both of these exist and have been invested in. What we also see is, in support of this, document, content, information capture software and solutions, supported by the multifunction device vendors. And that whole space there is really a sort of prerequisite for digitizing information coming in from outside of your organization, whether that's from customers or suppliers. So you have, the content pillars either side, the notion of digitization and capture sitting there in the middle. And then at the top, really where the value is when you build new solutions using these content stores, these information stores, the capturing of the content and the document information, you are building out potentially new solutions based on cloud, as we said earlier, cloud, SaaS, mobile, and analytics, but a new age of solutions, a new type of solutions that take advantage of all this capability. For us, we believe that the most significant part of this market map is here in the middle in blue. This is where we believe the true value is, and Dave will talk about Nuxio's view on this, but the notion of bringing together content integration services and being able to link all these different sources of information and repositories in the green areas around the edge into one common view of your information, put that to work in context of business processes using business process automation and orchestration capabilities. And more recently, and I think one of the big growth markets and big opportunities in robotic process automation types of technologies. So in that middle area there in blue, we really feel like that's where the real value is. Not that it isn't in those other areas, but you really need to have an understanding of that space in the middle and how it integrates into the environments you already have in place. And of course, doing this all in the context of the cloud, these all have to be easily consumed services and capabilities that can be consumed in those applications at the top of that chart. So there's a lot more detail behind that. Don't have time to go into it here in the webinar, but would certainly enjoy talking to anybody who'd like to hear a little bit more about that. What happens is if you leverage that middle area that I talked about, that blue area with the business process and robotic process automation, these are the sort of benefits you can see. So this is a vendor in the robotic process automation and content capture area, and it's just an example from one of their customers where it was taking over 2 hours to collect information from over 40 sources for a client onboarding and know your customer type of application. And they got that down to 2 minutes, so significant productivity improvement, cost reduction. Very, very powerful, but all in the context of content as an information source, business process management, and robotic process automation, or RPA. Now, there's a lot of other technologies here. We don't have time to go through them all. If you do your research out on the web, you'll find more and more new apps coming to market for information management, content collaboration. Some of those have a vertical focus. Some of them are very simple. Some of them are very transactional. There are lots of options here. But this all has to work together with an existing legacy environment, as I talked about in those charts a little bit back. Also important is the notion of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Once again, we don't have enough time here to sort of really delve into that in any great detail. But I think it's important to note that artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning will become increasingly important as a part of those apps, as a part of that content integration services environment. And it's something that you should pay attention to. How you use it is really the most important point here, because as you can see from this chart, there's no lack of technology innovation. There's lots and lots and lots of options out there. So that sort of takes you through a bit of a digital transformation journey. Let's just sort of be honest here for a second and look at the challenges of living in a legacy environment. I think here it's really a notion of sort of reality bites. So we all want to move forward. We all want to take advantage of the opportunities with digital transformation. But it's a fact of life that ripping and replacing large investments in content management repositories and business process infrastructure, in content collaboration capabilities, that's just not going to happen, and people aren't going to do that for all these reasons. The training costs, the cost it takes to rewrite apps, the lack of resource and skill, and frankly money and desire to do this. So we have to live within that world, and that world has a set of modern problems, and we need to build modern solutions to those problems. And I believe, at heart, I'm really a product marketing person, and I really believe that the key in success here is in really building high-quality use case definitions, where you look at the collaboration, where you look at the need for information access at a very detailed level, where you look at exception handling, whether it's simple or complex. You look at how people handle cases and what systems they need to integrate with. If you do a good job in this area of use case definitions, then I think you open the door for some real opportunities and some real capability to deliver some real benefits to your organizations with digital transformation. Just an example here is one of our clients at Understand Group, a company called Insight to Value here in the UK. And they put together a really sweet application, which you can see here represented, which was all about bringing together new technologies and mapping technologies and putting them in context of something very traditional in the content management space, which is very case management centric, which is the notion of automotive and auto claims. So they were able to put together a really nice application which really allows insurance companies to transform themselves digitally here, and using new apps and Google Maps and those types of technologies, obviously in a mobile and very much a cloud type of application world. So then, just very briefly before I hand on to David, just wanted to talk a little bit about the solution types. There's lots of opportunity here. Nuxio and AIIM will help you, I'm sure, in identifying the best opportunities. But I think it's fair to say that in compliance, whether you're in financial services, insurance, or any regulated industry, there's lots of opportunities there to transform business processes. If you're looking for efficiency and productivity, out in deregulated industries where you need to be competitive, there's a whole host of solutions there. Customer experience, my personal sort of favorite. I really feel like that's where the market momentum is, from the consumer side, people buying services where the quality of engagement and interaction is critical. And then finally, in the collaboration space, one that you can see here over time as AIIM measure this has sort of been growing, leveraging those new apps, those collaborative apps and technologies for new ways of working internally within your organization, not necessarily externally. So there's lots of different types of solutions there. So what's next here? I think that, content services is really positioned to become the new application development platform for information management services. It allows you to unify and extend the information repositories that already exist in your organizations. It allows you to integrate information sources, create a single view of that information, that content, that metadata, and then feed that information to everybody, everywhere, in context of their new digital challenges. Personally, I think RPA, robotic process automation, is at the heart here of much of the benefits we will reap in this area. And obviously there's some conjecture there and there's some debate, but it certainly is a powerful technology. And then on top of this, coming soon behind it, artificial intelligence and machine learning are really going to, as technologies break into the information management solutions space. So that's Understand Group's view on the market space. Understand Group, as Teresa said at the beginning, has it was formed about 4 years ago by executives who came out of the enterprise content management and information management, business process management space. If any of you have any questions, we'd love to answer them. And with that, I will hand it over to David. Thank you very much. Dave.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Martin, for very clearly explaining, I think, some of the key challenges around information that organizations are facing today, but also how the market's moving to address them. So thank you for that. Some really great information there. I'm going to change the focus a little now, and I'm going to take us right back to the first slide of the webinar. Now, that slide posed the question, how do we increase return on investment, or ROI for short, with information management system modernization? Now, there's a lot of moving pieces in any answer to that question, but I want to take a step back really to allow us to take 2 steps forward. And to do that, I want to start with a slightly different question. And that question is, what does success actually look like for your modernization project? If we're looking to modernize how we manage information, and many of us are, quite frankly, what is a successful implementation? What does it look like? Now, that sounds like a simple question, but actually, for me, there are 2 specific types of success that we could and really should be looking for with modernization, namely short-term success and long-term success. Now, from a short-term perspective, I think we should be looking to solve specific business problems or challenges around the way in which we manage information within the business. But we should also be laying the foundation for future work, future improvements. But for me, probably the most important of all of these pieces is that we need to be doing this in a non-disruptive way, a way that doesn't disrupt our users, our staff members, and the way that we run our business. If we get all of that right, then by definition, we should achieve a rapid return on investment, which of course is what we're discussing here. I do also, however, want to highlight that modernization can also deliver significant long-term benefits and success, as well as the short-term ones. It can provide a repeatable way to create new solutions to business problems. And if it starts solving those real problems on a regular basis, then it can start to garner the widespread adoption and use across the organization that, quite frankly, some of the old school ECM tools really never achieved, never got to. And finally, it can help you manage and control the consolidation of all of those many legacy systems that you've got managing information throughout your business. And by doing that in conjunction with the other pieces, the business can see an overall reduced total cost of ownership for managing information. And really, for me, it's very important when you start out on your modernization journey to understand which of these success criteria you're aiming for, because the way in which you get to them are actually very different. And to that point, bringing us back to the start of the conversation, in this webinar, we're obviously specifically going to focus on delivering ROI from modernization. So we're looking at short-term success. We do have a follow-up webinar at the end of October that will focus on how to achieve the long-term reduced total cost of ownership, and more than happy to provide details of that webinar to anyone who's interested later. But back to today, how do we achieve return on investment from modernization? Well, the first step is to actually pick an existing business problem to attack with these technologies and to attack with this concept. And within most organizations, unfortunately, there are plenty of potential candidates. The figures that you're seeing on screen at the moment come from some AIIM research from early 2018 that was undertaken with Nuxio and AIIM. And they show some quite startling figures. They show that 79% of organizations can't connect information together from different systems. Does that sound familiar? Three-quarters of organizations also think that getting access from those legacy systems that Martin talked about is vital. Getting information from blocked legacy systems is vital, and I don't think many would disagree with that. And when you combine these two challenges together, it should really come as no surprise at all to find that 76% of organizations are struggling to find the right information within their business in a timely manner. It's not really any wonder given the other challenges, is it? So we've got plenty of challenges to choose from. But how about we try and solve all of these in one go? Now, Martin talked about instant information access as being one of the use cases. So I'm going to use that as an example. And I'm not going to talk about all the potential things that content services platforms can do, but I'm actually going to narrow down on one very tangible way to deliver ROI within your business by delivering information much, much faster. So let's look at an example. Let's say that my organization has 4 systems, and I want to find some information that's stored within them. And if it takes me 1 minute on average to find information from within a single system, then my best case scenario to find what I'm looking for is that I find the information in the first system that I look in. And if I do that, it will take me 1 minute, as we've already said. In this case, everything's good. But what if I can't find it within that first system? Well, let's assume that it takes me a further 1 minute to switch between systems, to load the second system up, to log into it, and so on and so forth. If that's the case, then if I find the information I'm looking for in system 2, then it will have taken me a total of 3 minutes. 1 minute to look in system 1 and not find it, 1 minute to switch to system 2, and then a further minute to find the information in system 3. You see where I'm going with this, right? Well, if we extrapolate this out, our worst case scenario with 4 systems is that it takes us a total of 7 minutes to find one single piece of information. That's obviously an awful lot longer than the 1 minute that we started with when we found it in the first system. And what it actually means is that on average, in this simple setup, it's going to take me 4 minutes to find a single piece of information. Now, let's face it, 1 minute to find information within one system is pretty quick. 4 minutes is not. And bear in mind that most of us have more than 4 systems, and that it takes more than a minute to find information within one system. I realize I'm being deliberately conservative on the numbers here, but that's to keep things fairly simple. And the reason for that is that when you start scaling this out, the numbers become quite large. The reality of what we're talking about here is that 4 minutes search time per document, per piece of information, needs to be multiplied by the number of staff that you have that are regularly searching for information. It needs to be multiplied by the number of searches that each one of those staff does per year. And it needs to be multiplied by the annual salary of each staff member doing those searches. Now, that calculation gives you the amount of money that it costs you just to find information within your business. Not to do anything with it, just to find it. Now, as I said, my numbers are very, very artificial and very simplistic. But to explore what those numbers might look like for your business, we've actually created an online calculator that you can use at the web address that's on the screen, nuxio.com/modernize. Two things that I'd ask of you. If you do go and use it, firstly, I'm sure you will be staggered and surprised by the results. But number two, please do get in touch with us and let us know what you think of the calculator, whether it was useful and what those numbers look like for you. So if I've now done a great job of scaring you with the numbers, but what can we actually do about that? How can we solve this problem? Well, at Nuxio, we have a very simple approach to this. We use a methodology called Connect and Consolidate. And what we'll do is we'll talk about Connect now, and then we'll talk about Consolidate more so in that TCO-focused webinar that I mentioned that's coming up at the end of October. So to connect, well, it does pretty much exactly what it says on the tin, and it simply connects the various systems within your business together. And one of the benefits of doing that is that it actually allows you to create a single information hub for people to search from, which in turn, of course, leads to reduced search times, simply because information is accessible from one place, not spread out across multiple different repositories. So back to my very simple, very artificial example. Instead of having to search across 4 different systems, we can search from one. It's as simple as that. And in my example, if you do that, you actually reduce the average search time from 4 minutes to 1 minute, which is a 75% reduction in time and money. But obviously, let's be realistic here. Connecting all of these systems together doesn't just happen overnight. You have to do it piece by piece. They need to be brought together one by one. But even just connecting 2 systems together out of those 4 reduces the average search time down to 3 minutes from 4, which in itself is a 25% reduction in time and cost. And basically, as you connect more systems together, you get larger and larger savings. So what are you getting as a result of doing this, though? Well, aside from the user satisfaction of finally being able to find the information that they want to quickly, you're actually getting exactly what you set out to do. You're getting a rapid return on investment. And in fact, in our example, you're getting a 75% reduction in time in cost simply by connecting systems together and by providing a simple, effective, centralized search, by solving that instant information access challenge that Martin talked about. And that's quite staggering, and I'm sure you'll see similar numbers when you head over to the online calculator and plug your numbers in, plug how many times you search for documents in, plug how many members of staff and what their salaries are. And like I say, do let us know how you get on with that. But there are more benefits than just that time and cost reduction. Yes, you connect multiple repositories together. That's the core facet of what we're doing here. But it also allows you to connect and get value out of those locked legacy systems. So no longer do you have to only have single or limited numbers of users getting access to that legacy data. No longer do you have to use the old interfaces to get access to that legacy data. You get the ROI that you were talking about, that we've discussed, but you also get a platform upon which you can build new solutions, new applications on top of, all of which can access that centralized information from one place. So that's been a very, very quick drive through a simple way in which you can achieve a rapid return on investment from modernization. To summarize this very quickly, the successful modernization of information, as we said, can deliver both a rapid return on investment and a reduced total cost of ownership. Obviously, we focused today on connecting systems together to deliver that rapid ROI, a return on investment, as we saw, that grows with each system that you connect to it. Consolidation takes that concept a step further by delivering reduced total cost of ownership as well. But that is a story for another day and a story for another webinar in late October, to be specific. Teresa, that's all I have for now. I'm going to hand it back over to you to take us through the Q&A session.
Most certainly, thank you. And listening to Dave Jones of Nexio, and before that we were listening to Martin Christian of Understand Group. And actually, Dave, a couple of things that you were saying in here, I'm going to pop back over to this slide where you had your, get to the actual slide number here, where you had your sorry, we were talking about the modernizing and the tool that you have on your site for that. I'm just going to leave that up there for a quick second, because there was something else that you were talking about that, yes, you gave a fabulous example, but you also opened with talking about, what does success look like in your organization when it comes to modernizing your information management efforts. And I just want to invite the audience members to come up to their keyboards, go over to the Q&A window in there, and just type in there, and only we will be able to see it on that side with the Q&A. And we're just curious on, in addition to looking for ROI savings, what other efforts how do you define success in your modernization efforts? And just looking for a little bit more information from you as well. And if what Dave described is right in line with that, please share that. So I invite you to clue us in on what you consider success in your organization. And so I just want to give a moment for people to go ahead and pop that in there.
I think that would be fantastically interesting, Teresa. And obviously, Martin talked about some of the opportunities that are there for modernization, whether it's compliance or customer experience, just ridding yourself of the challenges that come with legacy systems. So, yeah, I would absolutely encourage the audience to let us have some details of what you guys are trying to do around information management modernization.
Well, and also while we're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and we do have some other questions that have come in as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and ask a few of these questions. And Martin, if I can start this with you, and Dave, feel free to join in on the answers on this. But someone is asking, how does RPA, the robotic process automation, fit into this modernization?
So RPA, robotic process automation, is a way of taking what are predominantly manual screen-based tasks, entering and collecting information from a multitude of systems and applications online, and turns those into automated computer tasks. Those can be totally unattended, or they could be partially attended by a human, a worker, a white collar worker. So that's sort of like how it works. In the market sort of map that I put up, you can sort of see here that it underlies the way that applications are built. So within a given application, you are dealing with subjective and objective information. The subjective stuff normally ends up being decisions, made or prompted to be made by humans. The objective information is quite often, provided and analyzed and delivered by a computer system. And what robotic process automation does is it starts to tie those two things together so that they can be more effective together, and quite often is the backbone of a certain type of information management application, along with business process management and automation, which has been around for a long time, and content integration services, which is getting the information you need to the point it needs to be for the application. So that's where RPA fits in.
Can I just jump in on that one as well, Teresa? I have a slightly different view of RPA, as you may expect. For me, RPA is a fantastic starting point for modernization. I think it solves some of the challenges that people are having with multiple systems, and it solves them today. It allows them to connect information across those different systems to get their job done. I think looking a little bit further down the road, that also helps you identify which of those solutions and which of those sort of information combinations are important to your business. For me, though, the longer-term strategic view would be to actually go into those systems and start connecting them together behind the scenes and providing consolidated applications and solutions that bring that together. As I say, RPA is doing a fantastic job of solving those problems today, but I think it's a short-term fix as opposed to a long-term one.
I have another question here, and Dave, I want to direct this to you first. Someone said that they have been connecting some of their different systems together, but with using custom code. With what you're describing, how is that different?
I think it's the same and different all at the same time. So the thing with custom code is that you've always had the ability, as soon as vendors and software solutions started publishing programmers interfaces or ways for you to interact with it programmatically, you always had the ability to create that custom code to tie things together. I think the difference with a content services platform is that this is a standardized, consistent way of connecting to different information sources. So you're not having to rewrite custom code to talk to your file sync and share content store versus your enterprise resource planning content store. You have a consistent way of doing that. What that means is not only is it quicker for you to build the things in the first place and to build those connections, but when you come to supporting those and maintaining those and upgrading those, you only have one set of code to manage and to maintain. You only have one place to look after, as opposed to having 101 different custom pieces of code flying all over the place.
Definitely makes sense. You had also mentioned that to start with disconnecting two systems together, or a few. You don't have to connect everything at once. How does someone prioritize which ones to connect first? And if I can start with Dave, but Martin, I'm also looking for your opinions on this as well.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different approaches there. The first way to do it is obviously to talk to the users and to find out which systems they're regularly having to dive into to try and find information. And what you typically find is that there'll be maybe 2 or 3 systems that they regularly go to pull information back from. And if you could join those together, then that would give you, probably 80% of all of the searches that people do are contained within those 3 systems. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to look from a technology point of view, from an IT point of view, and figure out which of those systems you can connect fast, quicker, in a very straightforward way. And sometimes, ticking off some of those boxes very quickly to get some rapid user adoption and some acceptance from the users is also a good way to go. There's no right and wrong answer with that question. It's obviously going to be down to the specific organization, but a couple of different approaches that you could use.
Yeah, and Dave, I'd add to that, down to the specific organization, but also down to the specific use case, right? So I touched on that briefly in my piece there. Looking inside the use case on how people access information, where they get it from, what they do with it, how they consume it, how they push it out, or how they curate it, all those things. It's a little bit of an art there to go and sort of get in there and do the diagnosis on a use case, so that you can decide, which systems you need to link up, but more importantly, which ones will give you the most value soonest in context of a very specific use case. So I would say yes, organization specific, but also down to specific use cases. And I think the better job you do at use case definition, the better return on investment you will get.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point, Martin. And again, something for people to bear in mind is that a lot of the time when they're looking at implementing technology like this, they have to go through a proof of concept exercise. And identifying which of those use cases you want to try and solve with a proof of concept will also steer you towards which systems you want to start thinking about connecting as part of that exercise.
Sure. Agreed.
Well, one of the other things that I just wanted to mention here before we leave today is that AIIM is our annual conference is coming up, and so join us in San Diego, California, in the U.S. in March of 2019. So we have a few months away, but last year's conference sold out, and I encourage you to go to the website and check out what's being planned, and to register now to secure their spot. There's a lot of great interactivity and networking, and a lot of really good connections to be made there. So for more information, just go to aimconference.com and keep up with us. And personally, I hope to see you there at the AIM conference. And because we're at the end of our webinar time, I just want to remind everyone that we have recorded this webinar, and it will be available in a day or two to come back and listen to it again. Invite others to listen to it. A lot of really good information was shared today. Don't forget to download the resources. Greatly appreciate it if you would take that survey for your feedback. I really do value that and read everything that you send in. I very much want to thank our underwriter, Nuxio. Without the support from our solution providers, AIM would not be able to bring you these free educational programs like our webinar series. So thank you, Nuxio, for your sponsorship. And as we bring this webinar to a close, I just want to leave everyone with our speaker's closing thoughts or a key takeaway from everything we've discussed today. And I'd like to start first with Martin Christian of Understand Group. Your closing thoughts today.
I think the key thoughts here for me is everybody's on a journey, so get educated, crave education through entities like AIM and vendors like Nuxio. Build a plan and then invest more time in your use case definition around digital transformation than maybe we have done in the past for other types of information management applications. So get educated, build a plan, focus on use cases.
Thank you, Martin. And Dave Jones of Nuxio, your closing thoughts today.
I think largely to echo what Martin just said, never before have we had such an opportunity and such technical ability to actually start addressing the information challenges that we have within the business. But the key to that is actually identifying those use cases, identifying the areas where you can make a difference quickly, and executing against those, getting that user buy-in, and then keeping that momentum going. Today is the time to start, but keep that momentum going and keep pushing this modernization through as long as you can keep that ball rolling.
Thank you for that wonderful insight. And thank you, everyone, for your time today. I do value that. For AIM, this is Teresa Resick, and we will see you with our next webinar. Have a good afternoon.